May the 10th, 1971, in a capital city not far from the Iron Curtain's inhospitable fringe. From here it is but 4 jet hours to Lydda. To those who have waited endless months, interminable years, it is but the flicker of an eyelid. Yet here, capsulized 30,000 feet above the earth, memories of the life that has ended still dominate. Eagerly they await a first glimpse of the land in which a new life will begin. It is scarcely believable. From darkness to light, from bondage to the smooth and graceful landing on hospitable Israel soil. Arrival from Moscow, from Leningrad, and from Gruzia on the wings of a prayer. Courage, fear, and hope have been invested in this moment. Bloomer and Abram Diskin had the courage to apply for visas, the fear of punishment, and the hope, when granted in Riga, that nothing would prevent departure. And now, at the airport, the bitter nightmare is becoming a sweet dream. The Diskins are already being absorbed by the absorption process. Apartments and work for some are immediate, a direct journey from the airport. Some will pass through the absorption center first. Others, like the Diskins, want to spend their first hours with long-sought relatives. How long? 44 years of separation. 528 months of longing for reunion. And when they get together, where does anyone begin? At 44 years ago or yesterday? But now, with reunion, there need not be an end. It begins through that first night with people. Who is still alive? Who is dead? And the missing who are neither? And what of the warm and lifelong friends? Will they come? Are they coming? Above all, what of Löwe, the Diskins' only son, who had insisted that they should go ahead and not wait until he received his visa? Yes, Löwe is an engineer. He had applied. It is like a roulette board, Russian roulette. Some get visas, some get prison. May the 10th, 1971. As the Diskins were leaving for Israel, so too was Dudu. His was a different type of aliyah, of going up to the land. After 3 years in the Bar-Lev line, or combing the hot Sinai sands on patrol, at last the demobilization camp, northward and home, 500 kilometers away. Demobbed soldier, ponder your future, says the exit sign. But Dudu knows exactly where he is going, at least for today. It is to Ruti, from whom he has been separated by 1,000 days at the front. At 21, with civilian life ahead, the future looks simple and beautiful. Ruti works as a trained nurse. Dudu will return to his studies at the Haifa Technion. Their first target is a modest apartment and marriage. The next morning, the Diskins at the Hebrew Ulpan. They are at the Mevaseret Yerushalayim Absorption Center for the next 3 months. Here they learn enough Hebrew and other things to fend for themselves. At 61, learning Hebrew is not exactly easy. Nor is it for the younger people from other countries as well. But this is why the Absorption Center exists. It makes becoming Israelis as painless as possible. Eventually they will move to jobs and permanent housing, and others will take their places at the center. The Diskin apartment, after the 3 months have passed, is one of 42,000 built in 1970 at a cost of $715 million. To them, it is everything and more. More than they had ever hoped for. And a room to be furnished and kept empty for Löwe when he arrives. All of the 42,000 apartments are for the immigrants. They must have first priority. Dudu and Ruti must find their own. They and their parents have scraped $4,600 together, a quarter of the sum needed. Intensive government housing plans for the newlyweds may provide the answer in the future. In the meantime, Dudu and Ruti try to rent an apartment. Just 2 small rooms. How much? All of Ruti's wages. Then what will they live on if Dudu studies? Perhaps he can get a job at the same time. Löwe's room remains empty. Instead of when he is coming, the word is if. Each letter reflects his disappointment. His personal exodus is barred. And as the Diskins fear for their son, others stream into the land. They come from Europe, from the Americas and South Africa, in tens and hundreds daily, thousands per month. Perhaps soon the figures will reach tens of thousands. The building industry works at full blast to house the newcomers. Above all, to make sure the children have places to live and grow up decently. Yet despite all the building, the backlog grows. In the suburbs of the big cities and in their centers are still immigrants of the 1950s who occupied and overcrowded slums. And there are Jewish slums that were never cleared, a legacy of the old Israel where poverty has festered since the days that preceded the state. All of these slums have to be replaced with modern housing. And there are tens of thousands of welfare cases of families receiving meager support. A grim picture of any time or place. These are the centers and suburbs of the second Israel, the stage of social tensions and angry discontent. No one likes this ugly fact of life. The mass immigration of the 50s and funds eaten up by defense and more immigration since produced it. Nevertheless, the impatience of the second Israel is growing, especially amongst the young, amongst the ex-servicemen who willingly offered their lives only to still find themselves on the morrow without a roof over their heads. Thus, the Diskins become aware of the hardships faced by fellow citizens and the stern reality of Israel's life. At home are the economic and social pressures against a background of immigration and security problems. Outside are the threatening arms agreements between the rulers of Egypt and Russia. Yes, only a few years have passed since the victory of 1967 and the shattering of the Arab armies. Yet once again, they have been rearmed. Sharm el-Sheikh is still quiet. Only spiked Egyptian guns remain there to recall attempts to deny Israel freedom of passage. The waters of the Jordan River and of Suez are quiet one day, the next they are enveloped by fire. Half of Israel's budget goes on arms, $1.5 billion per year, $150 out of each wage earner's pocket per month. No other country pays so much to preserve its existence. Living standards in exchange for security, social danger in exchange for national peril. The defense borders have been pushed back. Israel's heartland is safe, and the Sinai Desert is a buffer. Hussein's kingdom now ends on the Jordan's eastern bank. But although Israel is willing to trade much of this hard-earned security for peace, the enemy is not. Instead, he has massed 4,300 new tanks, 1,500 planes, and 1.5 million men. 20,000 Russian military personnel have stiffened the enemy's ranks, as have squadrons of Soviet-piloted planes and missiles. All, again, threaten Israel's destruction. As in the past, Israel cannot compete in numbers or in quantities. Its survival depends upon quality. Nor can Israel depend on other countries. It must take care of itself. In this technical high school, students prepare for new challenges, for new scientific and technological developments. Abraham Diskin has something to contribute here. In Riga, he was a teacher in a technical school, and engineering has its own common language. At this very school, Dudu graduated 3 years ago and now returns for his diploma. He intends to continue his studies. The school has changed during Dudu's years in the battle line. It has more classrooms, better equipment. And what is this new construction? Bomb shelters. Here pursue him from Suez. And these vents? Against gas attack, chemical warfare. Again, Dudu faces disappointment. His diploma is sufficient, but registration is no longer open. It closed 3 months before the commencement of the school year. Only half as many places for study as there are applicants. Thus, thousands are in universities abroad. Some don't return, tempted by the greater professional opportunities, the lure of an easier life and of greater comfort. This brain drain will sap the very quality essential for survival until more university space is made available for Dudu and for his friends. First housing, now education. After Suez, Dudu faces a new battle of attrition at home. At least on the Suez front he emerged unscathed. Already the home front is embittering him, threatening to leave deep psychological wounds. His friend Michael, a reservist in Dudu's platoon, was less fortunate at Suez. He left a leg on the field of battle. Certainly Ruthie has no need to follow her profession abroad. There is more than enough to do as a nurse in Israel. Hospitals are overcrowded, nurses overemployed. Shortage of hospitals seems an insoluble problem, as construction of public buildings has almost stopped. The extra beds in the hospital corridors are a sad reminder of that. Incidentally, while speaking of health, that of Bloomer Diskin returns to mind. Bad news from Russia has had its ill effects. Her son Lova, with others from Riga, is now on trial. charged with Zionism. He has dared to challenge the dictatorship as a Jew seeking life in his own country. He has sent protest letters to Utant, to the President of the United States, to Israel's Prime Minister. Only the Jews have the courage to challenge the communist regime openly. This entire section of Tel HaShomer Hospital is for the disabled, soldiers and civilians alike. Here the patience of the doctors and nurses is legend. Here men learn to live with their disablement and to help themselves. In this hospital is Michael, Dudu's disabled friend, on the road to rehabilitation. With the coming of autumn, Dudu is recalled to his unit as a reservist. His destination is again the canal. His civilian problems unsolved, he is happy here, for he knows that he is needed. And before he leaves, a quick visit to Michael, who now lives in his own apartment, given to him as a disabled ex-serviceman. His wound has earned him rights to housing. Rights have indeed their price. A huge protest meeting is being held on the open plaza in front of the Western Wall. It is against the fake trials being held in Leningrad and Riga. Daily problems are momentarily forgotten. Social problems are muted. On this, the entire people is united in demanding free immigration of Jews from Russia. The Diskins carry no banners. Pain and protest are in their hearts. As the last demonstrators leave, they remain alone on the plaza, alone with their personal problem. Unobserved, Abraham writes a humble note, a few personal words to God, and pushes it into a crevice between two of the great stones. Years have passed since he wore a yarmulke, yet now he stands like a devout and fervent Jew. On the note he has written, "Dear God, isn't this, in essence, your demonstration?"